Cope Queens, episode 20, Do Your Future Self a Favor. Hey everyone, it's Elaina, and I hope you all are safe and well. Throughout our lifespan, we are influenced by and affected by those around us, whether it's parents or peers or classmates, teachers, mentors, bosses, whomever we come in contact with. We are subjected to their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions, their judgments, whatever worldview that they have, they've shared that with us in some capacity, one way or the other. And so there are times where your own views and opinions gets lost in translation. And we have the tendency to waste a lot of energy worrying about what other people think and how they feel. And in this episode, I am joined by Ryan Stanley, an entrepreneur, a certified professional coach, and author who is known for his natural ability to connect, understand, and empower people who are willing to make the significant changes in their personal and professional lives so that they can become the best versions of themselves. And we discuss living purposefully and life happening for you rather than to you. And so just think about, as you listen to this episode, what would your life be like if that energy that you utilize worrying about other people, what they think of you or your decisions or choices, if you were to redirect that energy, focusing it on who you want to become, the life you want to live, the person you want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or have the life you want 10 years from now. If you were to use that energy, how would your life be different today? So I hope that you all enjoy the episode. I truly enjoyed the conversation with Ryan. And if you do like the episode, be sure to subscribe, download, like, comment, review, rate the show on your favorite podcast platforms. Hope Queens is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many, many more. To learn more about Cope Queens and me, please visit copequeens.com. Thanks for tuning in today. And again, I hope you enjoyed the episode.
You're listening to the Cope Queens podcast, where every Wednesday host Elaina Jones challenges mental health stigmas by normalizing the conversation through sharing personal experiences about how seemingly everyday life challenges impact us. This podcast is in no way a replacement for mental health treatment. To learn more, visit copequeens.com. Now, without further ado, let's cope together.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Elaina, truly my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it all week. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. One of the passages in your book, Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful, a first aid kit for emotional bumps, scrapes, and bruises of life. I want to read. It says, everything you do and think about today creates your future. Every thought and conversation you have, every action you take has a powerful impact on the life you are creating. How much time do you spend thinking about the future you want to live in? There is a you in the future. You are the change of what you will look and feel like. Decide every day who you want to be and be it with passion and determination. I love that.
You know what? I love that too. As you were reading it aloud, I was like, yes. I was like, yes, that is true. And it is so true, right? Every single moment is an opportunity for us to decide who we want to be. And to your point, as you kind of started the show, it's like we have so many different people and influences in our life and so many different types of conversations and experiences that can mold our thoughts and can, create fears or just direction, right? Trajectory. But when we start to recognize at literally any given moment. So to any of your listeners out there listening right now, like today is a completely unique day. Today, no matter what your past has been like up until this moment, your past doesn't equal your future. So no matter what has happened, it's brought you to this point where for whatever reason, you're actually hearing this podcast. And so if you're not satisfied with your life, if you decide that you want to be more fulfilled and that there is more opportunity, take a moment today to decide what that actually looks like. So if you could have a magic wand, if you could rub the magic genie and, rub the magic lamp and get the genie to come out, what would you want your life to look like? And there's an opportunity once, that's actually the starting point that most people don't make enough time to do, to your point, because they've already been influenced by others or others' experience to decide to almost like they're kind of stuck with who they are or how they are or where they are. And that's really nothing could be further from the truth.
Everything we do takes some form of energy. And we spend a lot of energy concerning ourselves with what other people think. And I remember sharing with you the conversation that I had with my daughter a while back, that one of her friends used to quote, "What other people think of you is none of your business."
Yeah.
Her and I had to have a conversation about that because she was like, well, of course it's my business if it's about me. And I'm like, but I've been telling you that the only opinion of you that matters is yours. And I've been telling you that since birth. And so I think that a lot of us get kind of stuck in that pattern.
Totally. And that's typically based on past experiences, sometimes with those people, but often with other people that have nothing to do with the person who you're worried about. And it's funny, it all comes down to fear. Right. In the grand scheme of things, there's so much, as a coach, and people often ask me things like, what keeps people from being successful? What takes people from stepping outside their comfort zone? What keeps people from having a fulfilling life? And, 9.5 times out of 10, it comes down to fear. And to your point, not only fear, but fear of what others think. Because unless you're actually physically in danger, and that's a different type of fear, right? And that's a valid fear, and that's you do want to utilize to, for survival or health. But if you're just worried about what someone somewhere else thinks, or something that you said 2 weeks ago, or what may occur in the future, like that's all fears just that we're just building up in our heads that are literally physically having an effect on our body and really keeping us from stepping outside any type of a comfort zone and keeping us from living on purpose and keeping us from really stepping into our true greatness. In fact, so many times I've said to my clients, how would your life be different if you honestly didn't care what anyone else anywhere else thought? And that means people you love, right? It doesn't just mean, when we say this, it's almost like, oh, I'm just scared of bullies, or I'm scared of mean people, or I'm scared of maybe colleagues or possible, whatever, just people out there like on the internet or something. But really also people are scared of what their mom will think. They're scared of what their friends will think. They're scared of, they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But as long as you're not harming somebody else in any capacity, if you're living life on purpose and really asking yourself, if I didn't care what anybody else thought, how would my life be different? All of them, without question, all of them have said my life would be amazing. My life would be so much different. And then so when you get down to it, so then I'll ask, so why are you afraid? They always, they sit there and think about it. It's like, well, I don't know. And it comes down to something that we've just been kind of programmed to do, through our life, and it's human nature. But when you really start deciding like, hey, I am here, like, there is gravity, there is sunlight, there is oxygen outside just right now, everywhere, so that I can exist today. Like, so you start to really realize that every single day, every single moment is literally not only a gift, but a miracle, right? I mean, when it comes down to when you describe the definition of miracle, the odds on you being born, really not even just from like, what happens when a human is conceived, but even the concept of your parents meeting and their parents meeting each other and having them, like this whole thing of science and numbers, like it's really the odds on you being alive is like 1 trillion to 1 or something ridiculous like that. And when we start to think about that and recognize that every single day is a miracle and a gift that I'm even here, for me to your point, take any energy that could be focused on creating this life and absorbing this life and enjoying this life, instead of focusing on what someone else somewhere else thinks or fears or things why I'm not good enough or judgment of myself or others, is really, in my opinion, just like a waste of that energy, when if you could be using all that energy, if not even more, to create the life that you want and live on purpose and love life, it really is, it can be a major shift in your life.
And I think we rely on other people's opinions because we've kind of lost that trust within ourselves for whatever reason. And to your point earlier, a lot of it has to do with the experiences that we've had over time. How do we get to this space of being at a place to not only heal from some of those past wounds, but to reconcile with ourselves and start that journey?
Yeah, I think the first, as I'm thinking out loud, I think the first step is going to be gratitude. I think that it's for anyone out there who's struggling in that space, if you start creating gratitude as often as possible. And that means like sometimes, well, how do I do that? When do I do that? I don't know. It's like, well, so think about when you're in the shower in the morning. What are your thoughts in the shower? What are you thinking about? Often it's about your day or an email or something else someone said somewhere other time, but sometimes it's just about nothing or nothing of any value or any importance to your life, or that provides any direction or guidance or care to your life. Or to your point, sometimes it's even negative thoughts. And so times when you don't need to be focused doing anything at all, maybe sitting in traffic if you're in your car or anything like that, like those are great times to just start thinking about things that you're grateful for. And what I'd also recommend, if this is something that someone is really interested in doing and they see value in creating gratitude, and I'll get into kind of the why it's so valuable in a minute, but if this is something that feels right for you as a listener out there, maybe make some time on a Saturday or a Sunday or some other time to challenge yourself to write down 100 things that you're grateful for. Maybe you start off with 10, then see if you can do another 10 an hour later, or whatever works best for you. Come up with 100 things that you're grateful for and keep that list in your back pocket. Obviously, you're not going to use it in the shower, but maybe when you're in the car or whatever, or other times when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or something like that, there's an opportunity for you to sit down, take out your list and remember why life is amazing and why it can be amazing. Now, to go back to the value of gratitude, literally, gratitude is the opposite of stress. Gratitude, if you think about it, the energy of stress in some capacity is lack, right? I don't have enough something. I'm judging myself as not good enough, so I don't have enough love for myself, from myself or from others. Or if I'm late for something and I'm angry and I'm stressed about it, there's a lack of time. I don't have enough money. I'm not successful enough. I'm not in the relationship that I want. Whatever. All these different things are a feeling of lack of love. If somebody was mean to me, these are all valid things to be stressed or worried about, but they're all a feeling of lack. And when you are in genuine and authentic gratitude, if you're sitting and really have the feeling of receiving, that is the opposite of lack. And you're in this feeling of receiving. And so when you genuinely and intentionally create gratitude in your life, you are creating the opposite of lack, and you're creating an understanding that you are being given. And that is the opposite of stress. And so right now, many people, more often than not, and I think how we end up in depressive episodes is we start with one small kind of depressive, angry, stressful thought. And then we get a second one, and then a third one, and then that one leads to a fifth one. And then soon we're spending, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And if 80% of those are negative or stressful, then your body is going to create a habit of just doing that all the time. And you're going to wake up the next morning and you're going to do the same thing. And so if you recognize that is a pattern, we can kind of send the spiral in the opposite direction by creating gratitude more often than not. And by the way, this is not, well, at least I have my health, or at least this.
Yes.
When we say at least, it's coping, which is something that is necessary. It might be a great place to start, but just for the sake of this conversation, when I'm talking about gratitude, it's not at least, it's no, like I have my health. Like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, I can't believe, like, I can wake up every day. I can walk around. I can do whatever I want. I can, choose to be whom I want with this body. And there's people who don't, right? And there's other things that they can be grateful for. And sometimes, depending on who you ask and what science you look into, people who are unhealthy and have forms of disease can use gratitude and use joy and use elevated emotions to kind of shift their physical health as well. So gratitude, I think, is super, super important. And the more you start to do it, the more the habit begins to become a habit, I guess, as they do.
Absolutely.
The more you'll start, your brain will start to do it on its own.
That was one thing that I was missing. I was so focused on the negative, what wasn't working, because I am a solutions-driven problem solver. So it's like, if I see the problem, I need to find a solution, and then everything will be better. But I had a difficult time being able to acknowledge any wins that I had. I didn't view anything as a win.
Celebrating wins is so important. And that's another habit that we can create as well. And so at the end of each day, so I have a journaling practice, that is part of my morning routine. It's part of my evening routine. And in the morning, I write down things I'm grateful for. And in the evening, I also write down things I'm grateful for. But one of the other sections of my journal is just for wins. What were some of my wins for the day? And they don't have to be like, hey, I just made $1 million. It can be, I had quality time with my kids. I got an email from somebody I wasn't expecting from. It can be whatever you want. Whatever at one point was a thumbs up or something you were grateful occurred, that is a win. And the more, again, we start to celebrate those, the more we start to see them as well.
Another passage in this lovely book of yours says, How often do you stop to truly celebrate life? How often do you take a moment to be present and look at the magic of your existence? Every single moment in life is not only a gift, but an opportunity to live and wonder at the fact that you actually exist and can feel the feelings and emotions of life. You are a miracle. Act like it.
Yes. And here's the thing. Let me just share real quick concepts. I completely understand that it sounds a little bit, life is rainbows and unicorns and, nothing bad ever happens. And I just want to be clear that when I would never belittle anybody else's experience or trauma. I've had my own challenges and traumas and upset, really some heavy stuff really throughout my life. And I would hear people say things like the quotes that you just read, the passage that you just read. And I would sometimes be like, well, that's easy for you to say, or, that type of thing, and not fully understanding it. But the more I dove into the concept of being present and being here now, and the more I've started to understand and intentionally create elevated emotions like compassion and joy and gratitude and love for myself and for others, the more it becomes that habit we talked about. But when you first read it and you first hear it, it seems like, okay, that's easy, especially if you're in a place where you're not feeling excited about life, right? Or like to your point earlier, if you feel like you're just stuck, that is not necessarily going to feel realistic to you. But I really just want to point out that is, it starts with just having faith in the concept and believing that what you just read is a possibility. And so if it's a possibility that right now is the most important and only thing that there is, and I do have an option to actually think that way and recognize it and look around at everything for the beauty that it is and recognize that it is a miracle right now that I even exist. When the first time you do it, it's like, okay, I guess, it seems all right. It seems to make sense really, but still this happened to me, right? And then the second time you do, you're like, well, I guess, like anything else, it's a practice. And then one day, man, you just have that moment where you're just looking around and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is all happening for me. If we can say it's happening for everyone, but literally it's also happening for me right now. Who do I want to be with this gift? The challenge, I think, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is that when we're worried about fear, we're worried about what other people think, we're worried about what goes on in the rest of the world, we typically are coming from a place that life is happening to us and things are happening to us and what someone else said is happening to us and what someone else believes is happening to us. And to your daughter's, the conversation with your daughter, what somebody else thinks, it's my business because I need to know what's going to be happening to me or what is happening to me. But if we shift that and truly recognize that life is happening for us, even the traumatic, stressful situations, as weird and crazy and scary as that sounds, if you're to take any situation and say, how could this happen for me? With a genuine curiosity, like, why is this happening? If that's true, and if I accept for a moment that this is happening for me, why would that even be a thing? How is that possible? What would it mean? And you start to ask, well, it might mean that now I'm supposed to, because I was assaulted, and now I am going to be someone that protects others who have been assaulted and help them get past it. Well, I'm making that up. Just, you know what I mean? What could possibly be the reason this happened for me can be a powerful, powerful question and can change, the rest of your life.
You had a great point when you were talking about looking at it from the perspective of this happened to you versus for you. I was guilty of that. It was, woe is me. Like, oh my goodness, something else just happened to me. What else is going to happen? When is it going to stop? The world keeps showing me its ass. How is it? What did I do? I used to tell people, like, I feel like I need an exorcism because there is a demon that has attached itself that is trying to ruin my life.
Yeah.
When I got to the place where it was like, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be me, and I'm not apologizing for it.
Yeah.
When you're a good person and you're putting good out into the world, like if you're a jerk, I'm not saying go out and be a jerk to everybody and think that you don't have to apologize for it.
Absolutely. Like, yeah. Hey, listen, I'm going to punch somebody in the face and I don't care what they think of me.
Right. That's not what I'm talking about. What I was talking about is when you're putting good out into the world and you're being the best version of yourself. I feel like in that moment or at that moment, you don't have to apologize for it. Like, I'm not going to apologize for being who I am at the core to make someone else feel comfortable. Or to have someone accept me or like me. You either take me as I am or we cannot orbit around each other.
What someone else, and we talked about it not being any of our business, but the truth is what someone else thinks of me literally has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with them, right? It has everything to do with every single second of their life up until this moment where they had that thought. And in like a weird world, had I been born to their parents at the same exact time that they were and lived every single second of their life up until that moment, I would feel the same thing about me. So it literally has like if I was a different person. So it literally has nothing to do with who I am, my thoughts, my words, or anything as much as it has to do with their experience. To your point, once we start really, truly, and yes, definitely never want to harm somebody in any way, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But if we are, our intentions are just for the greatest good of all, and we are letting our light shine from within, and we're living on purpose to be the best versions of ourselves, not only for ourselves, but also for those we love who are surrounding, so they can see that as an example and strive to do the same thing, especially as a mom, right? And for myself as a father. I lost my train of thought. I got so excited just about being a dad for a second there.
That's awesome.
Oh, but we're attracting people into our life who we do, we'll hear what they think about us because it will align with our values.
Yes.
When people start seeing you behave your true self and in a certain way and putting yourself out there, those who feel that and see that and are part of like or similar to that already will say, yeah, I like that. I want some more of that. I want to be a part of that. That's similar to who I am. How can we learn and grow from each other? I think the biggest challenge that we have in the world today is that we're coming from a place of competition, right? Most people are on this theme of survival of the fittest, and I have to be better than you in order to get by and to be the best compared to everybody else. When it's just not true. I mean, it's not our nature. We've come so far from our nature. I think in actual nature, I think animals, it is survival of the fittest. But in human beings who are conscious, we have the ability to, it's really, how can I be, the only competition should be me, right? How can I be the best version of myself in whatever I love to do? And even if that's in a sport, right, you can still be the best athlete in that sport for yourself, not to beat others or so others are worse or not as good as you. In fact, by being you take people who, I'll use Michael Jordan as an example, who was extremely competitive. Like, I mean, I don't know if you saw the show they did on ESPN, but like you could just see everything he wanted to do. He wanted to beat people, like literally, like that was his thing. And that led him to be the best in the world, right? So I see the value in there, and it doesn't, I also see there's a type of energy there that probably didn't serve him as a human being, in my opinion. Now, that being said, going back to the concept of being the best that you can be and others seeing it, there are so many people who didn't necessarily see the competition side, but saw him as being the best and didn't want to emulate that. So if you can remove the competitive, I have to beat people, I have to be better than other people, and just completely focus on how can I be the best version of myself and still get to those highest levels and allow others to see you do that and want to do that themselves, that's how we change the world. And we go from competition to empowerment, to helping others want to be the best version of themselves. And if everybody's living in this space where they're not only being the best version of themselves, but combining that with being the light they want to see in the world and empowering others to do the same, I mean, literally, that's how you create a global change.
That's amazing. I love that. Because I do think in that term too, as far as I'm not in competition with anyone but myself.
Yeah.
And I just challenge myself, how can I be better than yesterday?
Yeah. In fact, I have that little quote up on my wall right below my vision board. I'm looking at it right now. I'm in competition with no one. I have no desire to play the game of being better than anyone. I'm simply trying to be better than the person I was yesterday. And I would say also that the word better, I would even remove. And I would change that to different, because better is a judgment as good or bad. Different is an observation. And there might be aspects that I would like to change. But by saying that I wasn't good yesterday and I'm good today, still leaves you with judgment of yourself as not being good enough. And again, yesterday, you were exactly who you're supposed to be for every single second of life you lived up until that moment. Today, I'd like to be a little bit different in a way that is focusing more on who I prefer to be.
I love that. I'm definitely going to have to adopt that, because I talked a whole episode about not judging feelings, and there it was with the better. I like that, being different. And it's all a journey. Getting from point A to point B, many of us just have to figure out what that next step is. And then you figure out what the step is after that. And you have to have create a vision. Yeah. I feel like if you create a vision of your future, like in the passage, it talks about there's a you in the future.
Right.
What does that look like for you?
Yeah.
What does your future self, if you could peek into the future and see your future self, what kind of life would your future self be living? And now in the present, take the steps to accomplish that. I don't think that there's anything outside of our reach if we want to go through the scrapes, the bumps, and the successes and the wins to achieve it, because there's hard work in every aspect of what we want to attain.
Always.
You have to put in, you have to put in the work, you have to put in the effort, and you may go one direction and realize that was not the successful path, but there was something that you gained in the knowledge of that experience. How do you leverage that to now change maybe the course to still go down the journey?
Totally. And that goes back to the happening for you, right? So there are no mistakes, there are no failures. This is a perspective that people can attain. So if I decide that life is happening for me, even the so I'll use the term mistakes or failures that I made. If you decide those aren't those, but they are lessons for me to be more of who I want to be. And if at every point, instead of saying, oh, that was a stupid thing that I did, what a mistake I made, I wish I never did that. Like, that's all energy that you're physically creating and pointing towards judgment of yourself for making a decision that you made based on your life up until that point. As opposed to, you can say, oh my gosh, this did not turn out the way that I had anticipated. What is the best lesson here? And how can I utilize that to be the best version of myself today?
Absolutely.
Also, and I was going to say, and those things will add up. And the more lessons that you start to add up, that equals a lifetime. And then to also, what I would go back, you had a great point about the vision and having a vision. There's so many people out there who don't have a North Star. And so again, for your listeners, that's a great place to start. I would say, so gratitude is a great place to start. Next place is to create some sort of a North Star. You said, like, what does future you look like? Have you made time to think about that? And so and typically, right, the average human being will just go to this place. Well, I guess it's going to be this. I guess I'm probably, and kind of like a minimal, like, well, I guess I'll probably keep doing what I'm doing and maybe I'll get this if I'm lucky, or maybe, as opposed to saying, no, you know what? If I could have my perfect life, if I could close my eyes and I could wake up a year from today and my life was perfect, this is what it would look like. If you literally this is what my relationship looks like, this is what my income looks like, this is what my career looks like, this is whatever it is, whatever that's important to you in your life looks like. Make time to write that down and think about it, because so many times people get so caught up in looking at the past and looking at their journey up until now, as opposed to thinking about the future that they want to create. And the more we start focusing on one or the other, if you're focusing on the past all the time, your life is going to continue to unfold based on that past. But if you decide what your future is and you spend more moments thinking about that and reminding yourself of that and being grateful and creating gratitude for that outcome, you are then unfolding a life that will lead more towards that instead of something that was based on the past that you already lived.
Yes, definitely. Because my future vision is me on a private island with a Mai Tai.
Yeah, Elaina, and that's a real vision.
To be retired, I want to be on an island chilling.
And the people that get those types of things are not the people that sit down and look at their past, or the people who think about that and create a path towards that every day.
We are going to wrap it up there. So Ryan, if the listeners want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
RyanStanley.com is a great place to start. If you go to RyanStanley.com, that's RyanStanley. You can check out my audio blogs. You can reach out to me if you're interested in possibly working with me as a coach. Obviously, my book, as you mentioned, thank you so much, Elaina. The book is called Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. A First Aid Kit for the Emotional Bumps, Scrapes, and Bruises of Life by Ryan M. Stanley. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Nobles. You can get it wherever books are sold, as they say. But you can also get it from my website directly from me. If you order it from me, I'll send you a signed copy. And depending on my availability, which is starting to tighten up a little bit, but if you do purchase the book, it'll also come with a complimentary session. But also, if you're in a space right now where, I know COVID's hit different people in different ways, but if you don't have the extra cash to spend, but you're interested in some of the concepts that we talked about today, you can actually get a free PDF of the book by going to ryanstanley.com/free-ebook. And that'll give you a PDF as well. The physical copy is more fun to have. It's something that you can carry around with you. It's small enough to where you can keep it in your purse. You can keep it in your pocket. You can keep it in your glove compartment for those moments of stress. But if you're also interested, you can just download the PDF. That'd be awesome. And then if you're on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Basically, if you go to my website, ryanstanley.com, it'll have all the links there. And I'm assuming in the show notes too.
Yes, all of the links will be included in the show notes. I want to thank you, Ryan, again for joining us today. I truly enjoyed our conversation and the insights that you provided. And I encourage everyone, I have a copy of the book. I've read it. I've already bookmarked several passages where it's like, yep, well, if I'm feeling this way, just have to remind myself of this. So I encourage you all to go check out the book. And Ryan, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir.
I agree, Elaina. I had a lot of fun. I feel like I made a friend and I really enjoyed our time together. So thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, that wraps up another episode of Cope Queens. Thank you for coping with us today.
You've reached the end of another episode of Cope Queens. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit copequeens.com for additional information and resources. Thank you for coping with us today.